This is the United States Energy Association Power Sector Podcast. I'm Herman K. Trabish. I've covered the power sector since 2006, and I currently report for Utility Dive. In this episode of the USEA Power Sector Podcast series on new utility planning paradigms, we're going to talk about how variable and customer-owned energy resources, rising demand, and new policies are leading to the need for innovative approaches to utility planning. Venkat Banunarayanan, VP for Grid Integration with the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, or NRECA, is going to describe how member-owned electric cooperatives work with integrated distribution system planning, or IDSP, is enabling customer-owned distributed energy resources optimize affordable, reliable electricity delivery. Over Venkat's 26 years in the energy sector, he spent almost a decade working with NRECA on integrating distribution and bulk system energy resources. Before that, he held leadership positions with global consultant ICF International, the U.S. Department of Energy, and GE Energy. Venkat, traditional planning processes just no longer seem adequate to address growing load, variable supply and demand, and extreme weather events. Before we talk about planning innovations, why is this general shift in planning approaches happening? Over what timelines do co-ops plan? And what are the overall goals of planning?
Well, first of all, Herman, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this exciting subject. That subject very near and dear to my heart here. Yeah, your questions are right at the heart of the problem. It's not just cooperatives. I think the entire electrical utility industry is going through a kind of a rethink on system planning. For those who are not aware, so electric cooperatives were formed as part of the New Deal in the 1930s when the Rural Electrification Act was passed, and then the electric cooperatives are all not for profit, and then there are distribution cooperatives who distribute electricity to their consumers. Consumer members, and then GNTs, generation and transmission cooperatives, who buy power, generate power in bulk, and transmit them. So overall in the electric utility industry, and of course the cooperative's mission, primary mission, is to provide affordable, reliable, safe, and secure electricity for their members. And just as a point, one of the reasons why system planning is important is electric cooperatives in aggregate serves around 92% of the persistent poverty counties in the country, which means rates are a very sensitive topic in terms of the affordability of their members. So any increase in rates is something that really needs to be justified for it to be viable, going forward. So having said that, we are also aware, I don't need to repeat all of that, is a lot of what you just said is a lot of changes that are happening on the system, from more consumer behavior, and more consumer interaction, more consumer expectations on electricity. And then, of course, we have weather changes and we have distributed generation, DERs coming in, and so on and so forth. But then, so what is happening overall in planning is that system planning, it used to be together, generation, transmission, distribution. Then FERC order in 1992, FERC put out the open access transmission tariff, and then the requirements for that. And in 1992 and years thereafter, generation, bulk generation, and then transmission and distribution all got separated. The planning got separated and operations got separated. But now we are coming full circle now, saying because of all the DER, because of all the factors that we just mentioned, it has become more and more essential for a variety of reasons to maintain reliability of the system, to maintain the affordability by optimizing investments, and to integrate new technologies into the system to bring planning closer together. So what is needed right now, and what the entire industry, including the co-ops, are looking at right now, is how do you plan your generation, bulk generation, and transmission along with your distribution system. So take explicitly into account what's happening on the distribution grid, both in terms of changes in load and in terms of changes in DER, such as rooftop solar and electric vehicles and others coming in. How do you bring that all together into and plan in a way to optimize the investment. So that's really the overall goals of the planning.
That's the goal.
That's
Yeah.
where we are heading.
Just for the record, for our listeners, FERC, the rules of FERC, if that's the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Venkat, very briefly, before we move on to the subject of distribution system planning, what timelines do co-ops use? I think most utilities, I think, plan short term, 1 to 3 years, and then or 3 to 5 years, and then long term, 10 to 20 years. Is that the traditional type of
Yes.
planning that co-ops do as well?
Yes, you are right. The traditional, and that is another thing that's changing. And yes, you are right. There is operational planning, what I call, very short term, like less than a year. But then you have the short term, 3 to 5 years. Co-ops do the construction work plan, essentially a capital investment plan that is typically in the 3 to 5 year range. And then of course you have the long term strategic planning, which goes in 10 year. Even there are factors that come in now because things are changing much faster than they used to. So the planning horizons are shorter and need to be revisited more frequently. And then you have the supply chain constraints that need to be taken into account. So those are some of the factors that is even changing the planning horizon as we speak.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the distribution system planning. First of all, what is integrated distribution system planning, sometimes called IDSP? What is the goal of that? Have co-ops been working on that type of planning for the distribution system? And have co-ops been working on it long enough to show that it's been effective?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, IDSP, the term is relatively a new term. It came in a few years back, and there are many flavors of it. I mean, there is one thing that's about electric cooperatives that we need to acknowledge is there is never ever a one size fits all approach. Now, each cooperative has the autonomy and really the mandate from their consumers to do what is right for their community. What makes sense for their community to uphold the mission of affordable, reliable, safe, secure electricity, providing that, right? So yes, there has been planning done in its many flavors. Some of them has done only in the distribution system level. Some of them have been more integrated, looking at upstream and then downstream. But really the goal of IDSP, as I mentioned before, is really to optimize your investments while maintaining your reliability and providing options for consumer members to do what they want to do while integrating new technologies. Now, that's a lot of objectives, right? Bringing them all together and creating a plan is really a challenge. And it's not easy, for all the reasons we mentioned before. And how is it working, right? How is the planning working? It's working good, but there are more and more challenges coming for that. And what in generally, if I can sum it up in one word, what's happening, it's uncertainty. The number of uncertainties and the frequency of uncertainties is only increasing due to a variety of reasons, which we just talked about, right? So given all those uncertainties, the challenge really is how to really create IDSP, integrated distributed system plan, that really gives a no regrets set of investment, no matter how the system will evolve in the future, but also goes beyond that and says, depending on which scenario the future will hold, how can you still continue the mission? So that's really the overall goal of this IDSP.
Interesting. Now, among the larger utilities and co-ops, there's discussion about the need for advanced technologies to implement distribution system resources and effectively use customer-owned distributed energy resources, like rooftop solar, home batteries, EV chargers, smart appliances. And of course, that threatens, and I want to ask you if that threatens costs to be imposed on those larger co-ops. But there's another thing that we should include in this question, which is because so many rural electric co-ops serve lower income folks, are there technologies just in terms of better poles and wires need to be brought to some of those folks to sort of help them step forward? So again, no one flavor, but are there layers that you think about when you think about distribution system advancements for co-ops?
Yeah, no, great question. And that is something, thinking about technologies that make it a power more reliable and then more affordable and give options is something that our distribution co-ops, all co-ops have been looking at it as part of their everyday mission. So one of the things we call as America's electric cooperatives, we call them as living laboratories, to implement new technologies. And just one example, let's talk about AMI, smart meters, right? Automated metering infrastructure. Co-ops are by far the most wide adopters of AMI technology, from 10, 20, 15 plus years back. Because they saw that it's going to save them on truck rolls. It's going to help them get a better view into the consumption. And therefore, it was really a no-brainer to put in AMI. So when they see a technology that's going to give benefits that are far outweigh the costs of that technology, co-ops are easily the most aggressive adopters of the technology. And we have seen that time and again. But then stepping back to say, you asked the earlier question of what kind of technologies are we talking about when we talk about IDSP? The thing that's different in IDSP is not the technologies. There are technologies, but whenever you do an initiative or an activity or a plan, the planning is more important than the plan, right? The art of the exercise of planning. So it's about people and process. That's what I mean to say when I say the planning. It's bringing the stakeholders together. Think about the stakeholders we want to bring together on IDSP. You got the generation folks, bulk generation, bulk transmission. You got distribution folks, and you got consumers.
Right.
All of them have to kind of come together to understand the changes that are happening on the system and optimize investments. So that people and the consequent exchange of data and information is the first step. Next, processes need to be changed. Operational processes need to be changed. Let's talk about another example, DER. When you want to look at the benefit and costs of DER to the utility, you also want to look at and say, okay, if there's a lot of, let's say, rooftop solar penetration or whatever DER that's penetration, how do I take advantage of it to be a grid asset? I need infrastructure for that. There's a cost to it. Right. So looking at all of those, you need a full holistic visibility of the grid. So that's what I mean to say when I say it's a people and a process. And then, of course, comes technology. Let's not, technology is certainly needed. We're talking about DERMS, Distributed Energy Resources Management System, which look at a way to aggregate the distributed energies resources that are there, and then have a common visibility and monitoring and control, those kind of technologies. And beyond that, you have advanced distributed management system, ADMS, which really is really an aggregation of systems that really helps you operate a kind of a changing load, a distribution grid that has a lot of changes, time varying changes that are there. So yes, those technologies are something that will be needed, along with what I want to emphasize is a good communications infrastructure. That has been historically been there a lot more on the transmission side, but now it's becoming more and more necessary on the distribution side too, given all the changes that are taking place. Now, imposing costs and benefits, I don't want to look at that. It is very important for any utility, especially co-ops, since they are not, they, as you said, they are serving a greater proportion of lower income consumers. Very important to look at the benefits and costs thoroughly and make sure the benefits do indeed outweigh the costs. A lot of times, some technology may say, here are the costs which are incurred immediately, but the benefits would come 5 years down the road. Well, that's something we need to look at and see if that is required. So. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It's a process, not, and I love what you said. I wish I had heard that sooner. Planning is more important than the plan. That's just a superb.
That's not my saying. Somebody else. Apparently, one of the World War II generals said it. If I'm not, I forgot who it was, but never. Yeah.
But we only have a couple minutes left, Venkat. But and I hate to ask you to do this briefly, but as briefly as you possibly can, without, misstating. Um, a lot of people talk about something called integrated system planning being the next step, which because it can sort of maximize an all of the above uh, power source mix. And do you see that becoming the ultimate planning process? Do you see co-ops evolving as they are able to make these investments and adopt these technologies? Do you see them evolving towards something even more integrated where you have the bulk system and the distribution system, an overall picture? Is that something in co-op's future, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Integrated system plan is really about taking IDSP to the next level in terms of bringing it all together and operating it. And for that, you need a lot of system visibility and system modeling and analysis. But I think we are on a trajectory towards that. However, as I said before, the pace of change is different across the country, and the need for adopting a certain set of planning again is also different. So the co-ops may adopt it in different pace that makes sense to their community, and then make sure the benefit cost again is justified. But I do see overall in the utility industry moving towards a more integrated system planning for all the changes in the system that we talked about.
Great. Okay, that's a great place to leave it. Amid all the uncertainties, it seems that at most levels of the power system, the certainty is change. I want to thank my guest, Enrica VP for Grid Integration, Venkat Banunarayanan, for insights into how variable and customer-owned energy resources, rising demand, and new policy are leading to innovations in planning by electric cooperatives to enable the flexibility of customer-owned resources to help optimize affordable and reliable electricity delivery. As always, I also want to thank our listeners for taking the time to check out the USEA Power Sector Podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with everybody you know our quest for energy transition solutions.